Hello and welcome to the JAG Indiana End of Year Webinar. I'm Laura Wheeler and I will be your host for today. So it's time to celebrate. It's the end of the school year. We're almost there. We're in the home stretch. So a few reminders and updates, things to keep in mind as we get closer to the end of May and we finish out this current follow-up year. It's time again to double and triple check last year's rosters to ensure that all the students who are marked as 12th grade should be marked as 12th grade. Any student on your 2017-2018 roster who is marked as 12th grade is part of the current follow-up cohort. Go into your graduation screen and double and triple check that all students that have graduated have a graduation date there. And it's time to clean up some placements. Look at your past employment placements and your education placements for all of your students. Ensure that they're up to date, and if they've changed jobs, that there's a termination date for those. Keep in mind as you're completing your follow-up that 2 part-time jobs can equal a full-time job if the total hours are 35 or more per week. Also keep in mind, for it to be considered a part-time job, it has to be at least 10 hours. A full-time job is 35 hours or more. And to be considered a job placement, they do have to be paying taxes. Some figures to keep in mind as we get through the month of May. We'll have an accelerated follow-up schedule to follow. So by the close of business on May 10th, your unable to contact rate should be no higher than 75%. By the close of business May 17th, your follow-up unable to contact rate should be no higher than 50%. By close of business May 24th, your unable to contact rate should be no higher than 10%. By May 29th, your follow-up unable to contact rate should be no higher than 5%. And by May 30th, all follow-up should be completed. This will allow you time to double check, rerun reports, and confirm everything is accurate, and make any needed changes before the May 31st deadline. Now we're going to walk through pulling a couple of reports so that we can look in EMDMS. So after you log into EMDMS, you're going to go to the Review tab, then to Reports. First thing I'm going to do is show you how to accurately run a follow-up status report. So from your list here, you'll select Follow-up Status Report Senior Only. My screen will look a little different as I have all of our programs for JAG Indiana listed here. Yours should just show either your school or your region, depending on your level of access. So we'll select our school, our program application, either multi-year, alternative education, or out-of-school follow-up, and then the school year. So I know right now we're the 2018-2019 school year, but for follow-up, it's the year prior, 2017-2018. This next step is very important. It must have a date range. So if we want to look at what's our status so far in the month of April, we'll start on April 1st and run it through today, April 23rd. And then we click the View button. I went ahead and ran this report so that we didn't need to sit and wait for it to load. So once this populates on the screen, we'll run down some of the finer points of the follow-up report. So to ensure that you've run your follow-up report correctly, we'll look at this information here at the top of the screen. Is it the follow-up status report senior only? Does it have the correct school selected, the correct program application, roster year, and look at the date range? So starting here at the top, total participants, we show 18. Is that what you know to be correct? Do you have 18 students who are in follow-up? Then you look at your graduates. 17 of 18 graduated, 1 non-graduate. If you know that to be correct, you continue on, and you can look to see what your current job placement is. with a target of 60%, your current positive outcomes with a target of 80%, and then you skip down to the bottom, full-time jobs, so of those who are employed full-time, again the target's 60%, and then positive outcome, so those who are in some sort of positive outcome, employment, post-secondary, military, is it a full-time outcome? And that goal is 80%. Then we can look towards the middle for these non-positive outcomes. Unable to contact during reporting period should be less than 5%. And as a reminder, unavailable for employment as per JAG standard, that UN in the EMDMS, is for only students who are unavailable because of medical reasons, they're hospitalized, or perhaps they're incarcerated or institutionalized. If you have any questions, reach out to your JAG manager and they can help walk you through your follow-up report. I also mentioned that it's a good time of year to pull your program roster from last year. So to do that, you'll scroll through the list until you find program roster. Again, you'll pick your school, your program application, and we're looking at last year's roster, 2017-2018. That is our follow-up group. Once that loads, you can open it, and you'll be able to see your students' names, their grade level last year, and then barriers. What I like to do is copy and paste this list into an Excel sheet. That way, I can sort it by the grade level and quickly look to see who are my 11th graders and who are my 12th graders. Any student who is marked as 12th grade is currently in follow-up. Now, as we transition back over to our slide deck, there we are, we talk about the scholarships. So at this time, we are updating all of our scholarship information for our class of 2018-2019. This information is only being tracked in EMDMS. We are no longer tracking with an external Excel sheet. JAG National will collect this information towards the beginning of June. They will have an incredibly short turnaround timeline once they give us the exact date. So please be sure that you're entering this information as you receive it. Enter this information now. That also helps us at the state and regional levels to see if we're on track to meet or exceed the scholarship figures that we had last year, and that helps us to inform others who are interested in this information. So a couple of notes. If a scholarship is a lump sum scholarship, something that they get only once, such as a student who places first, second, or third in the CDC and gets an award there, you'll enter that dollar figure, select lump sum from the drop-down, and where it says number of periods, you must enter a 1 there. If you don't, EMDMS is using basic multiplication to come up with a total sum for these scholarships. So if there's nothing there, it reads it as 0. So it will take your scholarship amount, perhaps $250, multiply that by 0, and then the system reads it as a 0. Another note is when you're selecting is the fund type, a scholarship or a grant, please note that FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, is not the name of any scholarship or grant. It's just the name of the application that students complete to find out what grants and student loans they're eligible for. So an example of a grant could be a Pell Grant. We are not tracking any student loan information, so even if the student qualifies for some federal, private student loans, that information is not tracked here under scholarships. And if the student has been accepted to multiple universities and has been offered different scholarships depending on what university they attend, we're only tracking the information for the school the student plans to attend. If they're unsure of which school they're attending at this time, it's whichever school they are leaning towards the most. You may have to go back in and switch things out if the student changes their mind at the last moment. But at this time, which school that they're planning to attend, and only track scholarship information for that school. So I'm going to navigate over to EMDMS and show you the scholarship screen there. So once you're into your school, in this year's program year, you select a student, and you scroll down to scholarships. And here you can see they've already entered scholarship information for the student. It shows the date that the scholarship was awarded, the details. Was it a scholarship or a grant? They correctly selected scholarship. And then they put in the title of the scholarship, the 21st Century Scholars. Then they put in the amount, and then the period. Here's where we were discussing if it was lump sum, then the period is 1. This is a yearly or an annual scholarship, and they're attending a 4-year school, so they put a 4 there. And then they put some notes in here to justify this information, which makes it convenient when we're reviewing to find out the thought process along the entry. So we navigate back over to our slide deck. A few end of the year reminders. It's time, if you have not already, to be entering the post-test for JAG students. The post-test is the exact same form as the pre-test. You do not need to wait till the last week of the school year or till finals to give this test. You can start now if you have not already. After the end of the year and grades have been entered, you'll complete their end-of-year progress report. Note that the line that you enter this in, where it says end of year, is a cumulative figure. So you're taking their mid-year information, their first semester, plus their second semester information that you'll be getting here shortly, and then putting that in for the end of year. As an example, if they had 1 absence first semester and 3 absences second semester, then you would put 4 in for the end of year. You'll also be completing their retention status for the end of the year, and then running, again, a roster check to make sure the grade level you have entered is correct. If you have a student who had graduated early because they were an 11th grader and went on an accelerated route, you can change their grade level to 12 by contacting your manager. Lastly, you're going to go through each student and review the barriers that they have entered in EMDMS to ensure that they are accurate and to ensure that there aren't any missing. So let's go over to EMDMS and review those screens. So again, once you get into your school and select a participant, we can look at these screens. So there's 2 different ways to enter tests. You can either go into the student's individual drop-down menu and enter their information individually on their line. Here you can see we have multi-year 2018-2019 and a line for pre and a line for post. You'll note that we no longer need to enter information regarding the TABE for reading, math, language, and there's nothing for us to enter for other. A different way that you could do this is from the Enter drop-down menu. If you go on to Enter, select Tests, you can now see your entire roster. If you have already completed the tests for all of your students or the majority of your students, this would definitely be a quicker way to go down and enter their post-test scores here. It's also a quick way to ensure that you completed entry of all their pre-test scores. For progress reports, again, you can do this 2 different ways. You can go from the student's individual drop-down menu to progress reports. Or this way, you can see what was their mid-year information. So if they had 5 absences first semester, and then the second semester they had another 2, we would enter a 7 here for end of year. Or you can do a cumulative batch entry for your entire roster by going to the Enter drop-down menu and selecting Progress Report. Here, I would suggest doing a screen print of all of the mid-year information so that you have that handy as you're going through your end of year. You'll see here there's toggle buttons. You'll select end of year, and this is where you would enter their cumulative information. This is why it's handy to have that mid-year printout to know that this person had 5 absences first semester. When I click over here, I know then I'll just add in the 2 that they had second semester to show 7. Lastly, you'll go to the student's individual barrier screens. Here, you'll review the barriers that have been entered for them. If any of these barriers can be removed, You'll click this removal date, put the date in, and then click Update. If you found that the student has additional barriers that aren't listed here, you can add them from this Add Barrier to Participant section below. Running a roster to do a grade track is the exact same process that I showed you earlier for your follow-up roster. You'll select the program roster from the drop-down menu in Reports. You'll select your school, the program application, but this time you're selecting the current school year. And again, I find it easier to copy and paste that information from the report into an Excel sheet and then sorting by grade level to show you quickly which student is assigned to which grade. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to your program manager or to myself. We're happy to help you with any of this information. My email is there. It's lwheeler@dwd.in.gov. I hope you all have a great end of the school year, and we'll see you shortly at our State JAG training seminar.